All right, part two of section 15. Electric engine maintenance manual, electric motor division, GM, section 15, motors, all 6645 engines. All right, your protective devices, your crankcase pressure detector. All right, protective devices, crankcase pressure detector. After the crankcase pressure detector shutdown, do not open engine with a handhold. Cover the top deck cover, oil strainer housing covered at least 2 hours. Note the combustion is created by the oil pan when the oil vapors come in contact with the overheat of the engine component of the force generated with the combustion frequency bends and damage of the sensor diaphragm backup plates and the crankcase pressure detector. Oil pan combustion is suspected with the crankcase pressure shutdown with the detector must be removed. The qualified and suitable testing stand. Check for plug separator screen of the crankcase aspirator unit with do not move any of the calibration orifices part of the total crankcase aspirator system installed at the factory. Check oil level in the engine on turbo engine units. Check if the carbon blocking of the end of the indicator tube is even the protect with a stack riser. After the engine has shut down with the tube of the hours, remove the oil pan and the airbox handle. Cover the check for the following problems: cracked piston, broken cylinder, crab heads, cracked cylinder head. Badly worn valve guides, hard and lower liner seal with inadequate injector cap, crab nut torque, extreme cylinder scoring that could allow the air box blow down past oil control rings. The engine recently overhauled with investigate shop practice with the installation oil control rings of the rebuilt power assembly. Inspect the interior of the airbox and evidence of the carbon combustion with the cause seal hardening, the component failure, the inspecting oil pan indications of overheated metal surface, check the debris under the gear train at the bottom of the engine. If the preceding step does not close the cause of the shutdown, then while the engine protector is still off the engine, examine the oil pressure relief valve, the valve at the mount of the oil distribution manifold directly behind the mounting opening. Engine protector the port or the oil pressure relief valve, which should be face down with a downward or 90 way of the end sheet of the engine. The relief valve is installed with either facing the end sheet, the 180 degrees of the end sheet. Then the oil discharge may hit the actuating diaphragm of the engine protector, causing the fault of the actuation. Overspeed trip. The check for this possibility of the load on the engine suddenly drop. The check for the operation of overcurrent protective excitation limitation relay with the locomotive generator installation locomotive the announcer of the engine cooling control cab and indications. Run the engine to the maximum possible speed with no load. Check for the speed with the handle of the tachometer through the across the cover, the end of the camshaft, counterweight of the cover, the read the camshaft RPM. This valid indication because the camshaft is 1-to-1 overall drive ratio of the engine crankshaft while the governor is maintaining the engine at its maximum speed. The increased fuel injection normal overloading governor with the injector control lever the operator overspeeded device for the trips. The number note the speed of the overspeeded device for the trips. The hand tachometer the overspeeded does not trip the engine. RPM reaches approximately 10% over the rated speed of the backup. The injector control lever the shut down the engine. With the engine shut down, remove the front cam counterweight cover and check the overspeed mechanism. If the overspeed trip is too low at an RPM, it may be necessary to increase the spring tension of the overspeed flyweight. This is mounted on the front camshaft of the counterweight of the right bank of the engine. Retest until the RPM trip value is obtained. Correct the trip speed should be approximately 10% over the maximum RPM rating of the engine. For example, the 645 engine, the maximum governor speed tolerance is 908 RPMs. Should be trip the overspeed about at 1,000 RPMs. While the overspeed trip qualified with the running engine full rate of the RPM under load, observe the operation, make it necessary with the bleed air with the governing, adjusting the governing compensation needle valve with the governor shows all any tendency to hunt. Consult with the speed departure of the section of the troubleshooting guide on locomotive installation. Repeated overspeed with the tripling under load may be caused by an electrical malfunction may causing the load to be interrupted, causing the appropriate locomotive steer with the manual with the troubleshooting electrical excitation and protection system. A marine engine may be operated over extremely rough and shallow water. Considerable load fluctuation possible. They should not be confused with load hunting. The sun load variations may cause the engine to overspeed with the probable curve of the consult with your service of the engine, your electric motor division, and service departments for the recommendation based on the requirements for your installation. Tracing defective and noisy cylinders. Double check the procedure which will have the proven useful to determine the particular cylinders experience mechanical fuel supply problem. Cylinders with the difficulty may show symptoms smoking, misfiring, operating unusual low stack temperature. The following summary of the cylinder problems if they are related symptoms. Exhaust temperature. On marine equipment, the installation of the exhaust stack, the pyrometer check with the reading of the cylinder between the engine running low under load. Exhaust pyrometers unreliable indicative of the engine malfunction. Do not use any of the onset of the pyrometer pyrometer readings of the base of the exploratory teardown the power of the assembly. I will always compare readings of individual pyrometers, switching the sensing bulb between the suspected defective cylinder and one cylinder which is indicating properly. On locomotive stationary power installation approximation of the individual cylinder exhaust temperature can be attained with a hand held pyrometer. Pyrometer may be used with individual riser legs. The engine under load. These readings are unusual only with a comparison between the cylinders because the pyrometer must be being in a position I use side of the manifold. Readings alone should not be used without use of the basis power assembly teardown. Only the range of relationship between the cylinders meaningful with the detect with a suspicious cylinder. Using 4-tooth with a 1/2 and 3/4 inch pipe held against the riser leg with listen to the sound with exhaust in the sack riser with the effective exhaust valve of the cylinder with the injector not functioning can often be located in this way. To disconnect the injector rack link with the respect with the cylinder with the engine at the idle speed. Slowly open the rack for the cylinder, then return it to the idle position. Injector with the function of the properly pronounced belaboring of the cylinder will be evident with the rack and advance. Injector testing. Further injector pressure testing in this section with the check the injector for the leakage, airbox inspection, heavy cylinder scoring, badly worn or broken compression rings can cause smoke at highly oil consumption, loading and the operational problems can solve with the appropriate one revolution inspection sequence chart where they are provided. The charts are given in detail about each period of the crankshaft rotation with the differential engine configuration. The information necessary to perform through the airbox inspection will also minimize the amount of the engine bearing needed to do the inspection. Injector time and bracket setting. The injectors must also set the proper to achieve an even load engine. Uneven set of the injectors contributed to excessive vibration, smoke, with the premature wear of the possible assembly. To set the injector rack, refer to the set injector rack. Do not rely on bodily grooves or any other superficial means of identifying injectors. Check the injectors only by part number and they make certain that they are appropriate with the electric motor division part catalog. All injectors in an engine are correct with that installation. Alright, your engine will not shut down. Injector control lever in the stop position. Injector linkage may be properly adjusted. Injector rack may be stuck or incorrectly meshed with the injector gear. Emergency shutdown procedures. Railroad installation. Push one of the 3 emergency fuel cutoff buttons. These are located on either side of the locomotive on the catwalk edge above the fuel tank. One of the locomotive cabs. And fluctuation. These buttons are not train lined. Alright, move the throttle handle with the control unit with the extreme right corner of the quadrant by pulling out the handle with the clear of the dent. This will shut down the unit. All the units in the multiple unit equipped that consist of these isolation switches in the run position. This will not shut down the other units that are isolated. Turn off the control of the fuel pump switch on the single unit with the lead unit with the multiple unit consider the stop of the fuel pump with the result of the engine shutdown. Lack of fuel. The procedure will only shut down the trailing units that have their control and fuel pump switches in the off position. A unit can be shut down from the right cut while pulling the injector control level all the way down towards the outside of the unit, holding it until the engine is completely stopped, and unit can be shut down from the left catwalk by pulling out the low oil trip button on the governor. Your marine and stationary installation emergency fuel cutoff switch should be used with the emergency shutdown. Otherwise, any following procedure should be used. Push the manual shutdown button on the top of the governor. If so, equip the trip of the overspeed shutdown with the manual lever on the top of the camshaft counterweight housing, and drive the governor speed shutdown solenoid controlled electrically from the primary control location. If the governor did not go to the fuel shut-off position, they override the control link into the injector control lever. The pulling lever out of the car of the go, hold it until the engine is completely stopped. On the marine engine overspeed lever that did not shut the engine down, the engine ahead of the astern clutch to stop the engine provided that the vessel is not in motion. In an external emergency of the electric motor division, the engine can be shut down by depriving it of fuel by opening a suction strainer. Your injector pressure test special tool 8414877 use the pressure tester injector leakage, which are also installed in the engine, and pressure testing injectors are as follows. Alright, ensure the engine fuel lines are fully charged. Place the straight edge across the exhaust injector cam roller. The injector cam roller higher than the exhaust cam rollers. The bar engine over until the injector roller is below the exhaust rollers. Apply the test of the tool with the injector rocker arm. The injector being tested. The tool should be straddled the rocker arm with the lower end of the tines under the rocker arm shaft at the top of the end of the tool covering of the rocker arm. Adjusting screw lock nut. Move the retaining spring. Glove assist pin screen. Securing the injector control lever the adjusting link of the place the injector rack in the full fuel position. Apply 1.5 driver torque of the wrench for the preset test. Apply 80 foot-pounds of torque. Hold the torque at minimum 5 seconds, then the torque indication drop off of the wrench must be removed and maintained. Torque and injector is leaking and must be replaced. If the torque remains constant for the 5 seconds without movement of the wrench with the injector is acceptable, remove the torque wrench and pressure tools of the injector rocker arm. Connect the adjusting link of the injector control lever with a clevis bend and retainer spring. Test all remaining injectors. Exhaust valve timing. The description of exhaust valve timing is very important and ensure the correct relationship of the valve operation with the other events in the cylinder power cycle. To check the adjusting exhaust valve timing, it is necessary to know the top dead center of each cylinder is shown in Figure Table 2. Items where the governing correct with the valve timing are given with the following procedure. Maintenance for the locating of the top dead center. It should be necessary to check with the position of the flywheel pointer of the top dead center and proceed as follows. Remove the airbox handhold, cover the numbered 1 cylinder with the necessary with the bar engine in the numbered 1 position below the cylinder liner ports. Insert the brass stop bar with the 1/2 inch hexagonal squared preferred suitable to length of not more than port number 1 port cylinder, so the end of the bar passes the port over the opposite side of the cylinder. Figure 5.2. Stop bar inserted through the cylinder ports. A bar sufficient length with the prevent reapplication handle will cover. While the bar is placed as recommended, a flag on the end of the bar will caution that against the inverted rotation of the engine with the bar in place. Manual bar with the engine slowly with the normal direction of the rotation until the pistons travel and stop the bar against the upper surface of the cylinder port. Figure 5.13. Alright, use extreme care to avoid the excessive force. Make the position of the flywheel pointer on the flywheel. Figure 5.14. Limit position travel marked on the flywheel. Second limited position on the travel marked on the flywheel. Manual par the engine with slowly opposite of the direction of normal rotation until the piston travel again. Stop by the bar against the upper surface of the cylinder port. Make second position of the flywheel pointer on the flywheel. Figure 5.15. 15.5. Determine the number of degrees between the two marks of the flywheel. Divide the number of those by 2. For the C, the figure 5.16. With an example of the calculation, rotate the crankshaft with the normal direction rotation to the exact number of degrees predetermined in step 8. Remove the brass stop bar from the engine. The pointer should indicate 180 degrees below the bottom dead center. If it does not point to the position pointer, so it doesn't indicate 180 degrees. Pointer will now indicate the top dead center of the number 1 cranking pin. Engine is rotated so that the pointer is at the 0 degrees. Checking exhaust valve, the timing, check the time and the place of the dial. Indicate with the rocker adjusting screw with the shown figure 15.7. The valve end of the rocker arm must be in the high position so the exhaust valves are closed with the previous indicator zone approximately 1/10 of an inch for the set dial 0 to 0 to turn crankshaft the normal direction rotation flywheel. 106A at top dead center. Elsmith top dead center cylinder will be checked with the time of the correcting the valve bridge will have been moved to 14,000 inch. The timing must not be later than 110 degrees earlier than 104 degrees. Elsmith the top dead center cylinder being checked. If the timing is incorrect, check the proper installation of the camshaft gear train correctly in time and excessive worn gears. Your timing exhaust valve. The exhaust valve should be timed with any of the gear. The subshaft of the cam gear with the train is replaced while the exemption number 1 and number 2 idler gears to be due. This camshaft, each of the bank must be timed to the crankshaft. Only one cylinder each of the bank needs to be timed. To prevent possible valve damage, remove all the loosened rocker arm assemblies except for the one of the cylinder being timed. The rocker arm assemblies are removed. The hydraulic lash adjusters should be checked. Proper clearance to the valve stem and refer to the adjusting hydraulic lash adjusters. Or applied dial indicated rocker arm adjusting screw. Figure 15.7. The done with the checking exhausting valve time. Remove the dowels of the bolts with the camshaft with the counterweight. Remove the counterweight with the gear. Camshaft can be rotated, placing the cycle with the wrench with the flange bolt nuts. Rotate the camshaft with the normal direction rotation of the valve bridge in which the dial indicated resting moves at 14 thousandths of an inch. Turn crankshaft with normal direction rotation of the flywheel pointer at 105 inches. After the top dead center of the cylinder being checked with the install of the camshaft gear with the counterweight with the subshaft, do not tighten the bolts at this time. With the flywheel, as moving the top dead center of the cylinder being checked with the dowel holes of the camshaft, drive gear with counterweight with the camshaft subshaft should be in line, approximately in the line with each other. If by turning the crankshaft 104, 106 degrees, as in the top dead center, dowel holes can be made with the line up at the top, then the bolts should be tightened. If the dowel holes don't line up within this tolerance, remove the camshaft counterweight with the gear of the top subshaft with the rotate with the gear 180 degrees, replace the subshaft, remove the gear 1 to gear 2, replace the gear and counterweight with the subshaft. The dowel holes still do not line up with a misalignment of less than 75 to 10,000 of an inch. The holes may be reamed in insulation of 5,000 inch to 10,000 inch to 15,000 inch oversized dowels. If misalignment of the dowel holes are greater than 75 to 10,000 inch, proceed to step 17. Do not insert Insert 5 16-inch 24 bolts approximately at 1.5 inches in the dowel bolt pins. Place the dowels in the dowel holes, drive it into the subshaft, remove the dowel bolts from the pins, remove the counterweight with the subshaft bolts, install the dowel retainer plate with the counterweight to the subshaft, torque the nuts to 90 foot-pounds of torque, install dowel pin bolts to torque the 17 foot-pounds of torque lock wire and mounting bolts, dowel bolts into the groups of 3, 2 mounting bolts, 1 ground bolt, dowel bolt. The crankshaft should be now rotated with the normal direction timing checks of the valve bridge. The valve being checked as they move at approximately 14,000 an inch. Then when the flywheel timer pointer is at 104, 106, as in the top dead center, remove the operation one cylinder of the opposite bank. After timing has been complete, relative position of the mating parts will be identified similar to the method used in new engines. Mating parts are marked with the number 1 piston at the top of the dead center. This is complete with the valve timing procedure. Remove the counterweight, the gear from the stub shaft, plug the dowel holes in the stub shaft. The valve drill tap to open 2 double holes, 3/4 inch 16th NF thread with a minor diameter of 0.731 inches plus or minus 5,000 inch, and the pitch diameter 7,904, 10,000 inch plus 10,000 inch. Countersink 1/16 inch gear on the mount. It's just a side driver thread with the head X plug into the hole. Cut plug head off the flare by pinning it in the countersink ground plug to the flush flame's face. Check the 5,749,005 inch of the 1,000 inch flange outside the diameter high spot grind proper dimension. Caution if the camshaft crankshaft relationship has been disturbed. Then repeat steps 3. Apply camshaft gear with the subshaft secure with the mounting bolts. Rotate engine crankshaft the position indicated with the figure 15-8. 21. Remove the gear mounting bolts. Position give the counter bolts of the tab shaft of the counterweight with the down position. Counterweight scribe the line parallel with the engine center line. And ensure that the gear with the counterweight dowel holes are aligned. Install the mounting bolts of the secure gear with the counterweight with the subshaft, the grill, and ream subshaft dowel holes at 12.662 plus or 5,000 inch to 0,000 inch. Steps 8. Perform steps 8 through 16. You're adjusting hydraulic lashers, application properly, operating lash adjuster correct setting as subsequent inspection, regular maintenance intervals very important to the valve. Operation properly set with the effective lash adjusters cover the exhaust valve to be subject to increase the stress to lead to the ultimate failure of the probable damage of the engine. After complete cylinder head assembly, the power of the assembly has been installed, the lash adjusters may be set. Open the cylinder test valve to rotate the crankshaft of the position in at the near top dead center with the cylinder being set. Loosen the rocker arm adjusting screw lock nuts. Turn the rocker arm adjusting screw screw down until the last valve with the touch of the hydraulic lash adjuster plunger for 1,000 inch shim between the valve tip and the adjusting plunger. Then turn down 1.5 turns. Check the valve bridge cylindrical sieve to be sure that the spring loaded against the cylinder head with the cylindrical sieve with the bridge spring with the cylindrical sieve with the spring down loaded against the cylinder head of the cylindrical sieve. Turn down the rocker arm adjusting screw until no movement is felt. Then turn another quarter turn. Tighten the rocker arm adjusting screw lock nut after running the engine until the lube oil reaches the operating temperature of the clearance between the lash adjuster by the end of the valve stem with the piston near the top center of the clearance of the less minimum. The clearance cylinder head should be removed with the reconditioning rejection. The minimum clearance gauge of the figure 519, the gauge clearance mesh between the last adjuster and exhaust valve of the gauge is 1/16 of an inch thick, should be fit between the last adjuster body and the valve stem top to ensure the minimum clearance. Time the injector. When the injector is installed, make time the adjustment of this valve. 1. On a blower engine, set the flywheel at 4 degrees before the top dead center of the cylinder being timed. B. On a turbocharged engine, set the flywheel at 0 degrees top dead center of the cylinder being timed. Refer to table 2 for the top dead center settings. Insert injector timing gauge in the hole provided for the injector body, figure 510, figure 12 and 15.9. Check the last adjuster valve clearance. And then 1510 timing injector rocker arm adjusting screw, injector timing gauge. Loosen the lock nut, turning rocker arm adjusting screw with the shoulder gauge jaws that passes over the injector follower guide. Injectors cannot be timed. The overspeed has been tripped and must be for the reset of the engine crankshaft bar over at least 1 revolution. Tightening adjusting screw lock nut, holding adjusting screw in position with the screwdriver, rechecking setting injector racks. Injector should be set with the engine operating with the temperature of X. If the set with the engine is not operating temperature of the setting, should be rechecked. The operating of the temperature is checked. Reach the engine temperature, increase of the right bank rack length of the short and left bank length, increase of the change of the length bank, and significant but change of the right bank may be shortened for the racks beyond the minus of the 1/64th of an inch tolerance. Every time the governor is installed on the engine injector rack, its settings should be checked due to the manufacturer tolerance and the governing mounting bolts of the position of the governing relationship with the injector linkage can check the change of rack setting. So the injector rack of the engine is valved and install the applicable injector linkage setting in the figure 15.1 for the engines equipped with the PG EGB 10 governors. Adjust the setting rack until the pointer on the governor aligns with the governor terminal shaft scale with a 1 inch mark. For engines equipped with the UG 8 governors and turn load limited with the knobs of the governor to the maximum load position. Adjust the setting jack of the terminal shaft with the fuel full position. Alright, use the rack gauge with the adapter figure 1512 with the set of the rack on the engine with the have the PG EGB 10 type governors. Set the rack within the setting range of the marks on the gauge. The use of the rack with the gauge with the have the adapter figure 1512 with the setting of the rack of the gauge engine. Rack engines have the UG governors with have the rack of the resetting of the range of the governor marks on the gauge. Rack setting with the gauge of the 8-to-1 multiplying gauge indicate the 1 inch and 64th of the 1/64th of an inch marks of the 1/8 of an inch of the 1/64th of an inch of the 1/8 of an inch each side of the center mark of the gauge scale. It's important that the proper rack gauge be used. The previous model rack gauges will be measured with the rack length of the body injector instead of the face with the calibrating side. The correct gauge of the setting injector of the calibrating side can be readily identified by a single location button on the front face of the gauge. This gauge can also be used for all injectors. The injector rack positioning shows the injector linkage setting and the governor jack, and then the governor jack again. Your injector rack gauge application. Place the gauge over the injector rack. Hold the gauge firmly against the face of the calibration side of the injector. 1513 to check if the gauge pointer. If the pointer is the short of the end of the gauge scale outside of the setting range, the rack is not extended out enough with the injector. Loosen the lock nut with the adjusting link with the turning of the adjusting nut on the link of the up until the pointer L at the end of the scale. Reversing pointer travel until it is within scale setting the range of the adjusting nut with the delay and the lock nut with the reason exceeding the setting range of the made adjustment so that the setting of the rack's backlash will be taken in the same direction. When pointers is long L with the end of the scale set with the pointer with the setting range of the accuracy of the injector rack of the gauge can be checked by inserting master part block of the gauge body of the pointer should align with the center mark on the scale. Alright, 1 revolution inspection sequence chart. The following engine 1 revolution inspection charts show the proper power assembly checks visually made during the 1 revolution of the engine crankshaft. Select the chart was applicable the number of the cylinder with the direction of the rotation engine to be inspected. 513 injector rack application. The right hand charts are applicable to only right hand rotation marine engines. Start with the engine flywheel at 0 degree with the pointer. Both bar the engine over slowly with the normal direction of the rotation. Read the chart with the right with the flywheel degrees. For cylinder number, the check is to be made. The column heads are 12 flywheel degrees. Blower and indicate the flywheel set required on the blower type of the engine to perform the applicable inspection. Turbocharging indicate flywheel setting required. A turbocharging engine to perform applicable inspection. Set injectors. Number appearing to column opposite flywheel degrees indicate that the injector of the cylinder can be timed. Number 1 ring of the upper appearing of the column indicate that the upcrossing rings of the cylinders are moving upward past the ports of the liner can be inspected. The down number of appearing that indicate that the compression rings then the cylinder are moving downward past the ports of the liner can be inspected. Piston cooling oil pipe. The number appearance of the cleaning indicates the clearance between the piston cooling oil pipe and the pipe piston carrier can be observed. The alignment gauge can be used. Piston. The number appearing in the column indicate the screw of the piston and the cylinder can be inspected throughout the liner ports. Line of the number appearing in the columns indicate the piston and the cylinder is at near the top, near bottom dead center, which allows the inspection of the liner bore through the liner ports. It shows the 8-cylinder revolutions, the 12-cylinder revolutions, 16-cylinder revolutions, 20-cylinder revolutions, marines only, and then your interpretation lube oil sample analysis, and then another firing order sheet, and your governor related troubleshooting. We'll cut the tape here and start again.